Okay, so my name is Akira, and I've been here almost little bit more than 3 years. I come here, moved to LA, really the end of the 2017, December 26th, I remember. And to follow my dream to be, doing music, and especially film composing. Yeah, and right now I'm mainly composing for the horror or suspense stuff, and I released the music library album, two music library album from the library company. It's both suspense or the horror kind of stuff, like a weird kind of music. Yes, and also I'm playing guitar too. And before the pandemic, I play around in a Hollywood area with a comedian, improv comedian, and I was playing as a, not crown. I'm doing the accompaniment guitarist. I accompany the music for the improv comedians, like a impromptu, and I really enjoy that. And I'm always looking for the film project to participate in, right? And today I'm going to play some of my composition and some other very famous jazz tune to improvise over the chord progression. And because this is really nice to see in person, not really in person, right? But it's really like good opportunity to communicate. And right now I'm trying to do some live now. Yeah, that's all about me now. Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. Yeah. And
may I ask a question? Where did you move to Los Angeles from?
I'm originally from Tokyo, Japan.
So welcome to the US.
And also, I can speak Japanese like this, but I also speak Japanese much better than English. That right now I'm teaching Japanese too. Also, yeah, I'm doing film composing and doing guitar and teaching Japanese online and teaching guitar. That's all about me now.
Excellent. Well, we would love to hear some of what you're working on right now. That'd be fantastic. And if anybody wants a heads up as far as time, you can just let me know. But you're good. Oh, Akira, are you going to play for us?
No? Do I play now?
Yes, of course. You have 15 minutes.
This is my turn?
Yes.
Am I first? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Can you hear it? Okay. So, right, I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, this is the first song I'm going to play today. And the song name is Hollywood Dead Lake. I wrote this song almost 10 years ago. Yeah, more than 10 years, 20 years ago or so. 1995 or 6 when I was here for the first time as a student of the Musicians Institute of Technology. And I was studying, the music at that school. The school is on the Hollywood Boulevard. And after I graduated that school, I go back to Japan and the time flies so fast, 20 years and more, it's quick. And I could come back after the 20 years for the first time to LA to, follow my dream again. Okay, so it's so good, I'm, seeing Vanessa, your face only now. And it's like, I'm feeling playing only for you.
That's so funny.
Like a, private, private party. So fun. Yeah, good. Yes, and so normally I play this song when I'm in Japan. I play around in a small club in Tokyo, and I play with my band. I rearrange this song especially for this presentation for the solo guitar pieces like this, and it's really quite good because the name of the song is Hollywood Dead Lake, and this is the really first time to play. This song is to play in really Hollywood here. It's very good. Okay, now so I will do some other. I will play the other song, and the song name is Blue Bossa, famous jazz standard tune, and I will improvising over the chord progression of that song. Okay, hope you enjoy. More relaxing stuff. Okay, that's it. So thank you very much. So there's some misnote, but I really enjoyed. It's over. Where are you, Vanessa? Are you?
Thank you, Akira.
Yeah.
That's a lovely guitar, and I know that you're trained in jazz guitar. When you do your composition for films, is it always in the jazz style?
Not really. So right now when I'm composing, mostly over 80% is horror stuff, and I make it little weird, very not the totally. Maybe I have some jazz influence stuff, but try to make it sound really creepy, right? Like this sound. Right? It's horror. Like creepy and like a goosebumping kind of stuff I'm trying to make, and not really totally, doing some jazz influenced music, but when you make some melody or doing composition like a chord sequence, absolutely I'm really, maybe I borrowed some jazz chord progression from some old jazz standard music. But it's not planned. I'm not planned to do that. It sometimes happen, sometimes not happening, because horror music kind of sometimes it's not logical, like just a sound, right? Like a very dissonant sound. It's you cannot explain what is the logical background. Just I'm putting some sound I find in my computer, like samples, right? Just mix up samples or make it sound a little bit weird sound or some like hitting sounds like boom kind of things. And yeah, actually, sometimes I'm superimposing some of my jazz influence in my music, but also I'm really relying on the technologies right now. Like digital sampling stuff or some looping technology, and also like a MIDI data, absolutely, like almost done in a computer. Yeah.
I want to tell everyone here, the audience, that they feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question for Akira. Just give a minute or two just for any other questions. Otherwise, we will be sending a follow-up email after the salon so that you can get in touch with the artist directly should you have any direct questions you'd like to ask.
Just a compliment. It was a beautiful composition. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So hope you enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. So you want me just to tell about myself? Well, about my brand?
Yeah, and how you got started fashion designing, and I think even more importantly, who you actually cater to, which is something that had me very interested right off the bat. You do a lot of things, and you do a lot of things differently. And
yes, a little differently. So basically, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I've been here my whole life. I was in the automotive industry, which is so different than what I do now, for about 25 years. And then I segued into opening up a small boutique, but then that sort of took me on my new journey where I even met Vanessa. So basically, a few years ago, I had decided to create a show called Love Your Body, which represents all girls, all women, all sizes, shapes, backgrounds, abilities. We call it abilities, disabilities, anything. Everyone's welcome to the show. And the reason it started was because a lot of little girls would come in, and I saw everybody was like, you know, a little insecure about how they looked, and even adult women. And so I thought, what a great place where they could feel safe, because there's absolutely, I mean, there's no critique of anything. It's, I mean, obviously it's done in an orderly fashion. I don't want everybody to think it's so wild, but you're free to be who you are. And it's a very safe place for girls and women to walk down a runway, feel great about themselves. And what had happened in the last, I guess, 5 years is I found that there just wasn't clothing was hard to find if you weren't always a size 0 to even a size, 8 and 10, you could find more clothes. So I started to make clothes from little girls through adult women, and we go from size like, children's size all the way to 3X, which was very important. And also we did it a little bit with a modest twist, because it was harder to find clothes that accommodated all women, whether they were a little more modest or not, or however you want to be. But so basically the clothing line and the Love Your Body event is where I segued my business into. Unfortunately, COVID sort of took a little hit on us last year. We were 10 days out before our show. So it was quite disappointing, especially we had about 150 models ready to go and 60 vendors, and everything was paid for, deposit. I mean, you all know the story. I'm sure everyone's got the same story for the last 12 months. And we postponed it to August. And I thought I was being the most cautious last year. And who knew that we'd even still be here now in February 2021. But I do only look forward to the future. And since it sounds crazy, but we're up to 230 models. We've even had more people join, and we've had more vendors join and sponsors. And I created a partnership with Artists for Trauma, which is who we were speaking about before about Laura. So we have decided that we're going to create the shows together. We did a few things this summer with masks, donations, etc. So basically our show, which is going to happen, it's just either going to be August or October. We're going to know Monday what date we get from the hotel. And basically it's open to everyone, which makes it I happen to think that's very important. It's very inclusive of everyone. And it's also a place for women and men, if they have businesses and they want to showcase their items. It also has a whole shopping aspect to it as well. And then funny enough, the reason I also just thought about it right now is our new concept's going to be Artists in the Garden, because we're also going to bring in different artists to promote their, whether you're a painter, a photographer, anything like that, there's going to be an aspect for that as well. So that's basically where we are right now. Yes. And Vanessa was a model in a couple of the shows. So that is how I met her. And I was very lucky to meet her. Very lucky. Yes. So that's me. Oh, and then I was going to show my candle. Is that okay?
I would love that.
Yeah. So a few years ago, I created a candle called Destiny Candle. And you light it, you melt it. It has 3 aspects. It's a normal candle. You also can, let me just grab one. I already melted it before. You can melt it and you put it on as massage oil. So you light it, you melt it, and you can actually pour it on, which I didn't want to do over my computer, but it never gets truly very hot. It burns at a lower heat than a normal candle. So it's a candle, massage oil, and everybody gets it's just like a fun, like Cracker Jacks. If anybody knows what Cracker Jacks are, you get like a little perk. So I've got these last time, these little earrings in it. I got these about a year ago. So you light it, melt it, you pour it on. It has 3 aspects to it, so 3 in 1, and it's 100% natural. But the main thing is everything that has our brand on it, Karen Michelle brand, is all made in the USA, including the candle. And also I didn't know really how to share a screen if I wasn't the hostess, so I apologize. So I brought a couple of photos. So for example, I don't know if you can see it, that's one of our tops that we make. Here's another one. So we do all the photo shoots ourselves. Here's another one, another top that we make. We create skirts, we create dresses, and we just actually have I have to say it's been a fun ride, and it was a big shift for me because the automotive was pretty much 98% men, and this is 98% women. So it's been such a balance, and so it's been a lot of fun. But I have to say it was my path and it was my direction, and I've been lucky enough. I mean, I hope COVID is done, because we really need to get back to, as much as we are so lucky about Zoom, because I don't know how, I guess we're all different in the now in 2020, if we didn't have Zoom, how things would be, God forbid. But now with Zoom, I'm looking so forward to finally getting back to being next to people, because I've had the same, even though I've sold different items, I've had the same retail job for 31 years, which has been 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., 6 days a week. So this was a huge shift, but I'm putting more into getting the show ready. And I tell you, we even had another sponsor sign up last week, and I'm like, are you sure? I said, we don't know when. Doesn't matter. We like the vision. We're with you. And I was like, okay, so it's going to happen. It's just a matter. Yes. Thank you, Boris. Thank you. It's just a matter of time. So that's all I want to say. But thank you for listening to me tonight. And I'm so honored to be here with all of you.
So next we have Karim Shuquem. And Karim, I'm so excited to have you here because our common friend Angela speaks so highly of you. And
yeah, she's wonderful.
I know you've known each other for decades, and
definitely.
Just looking through some of your work, I'm so interested to find out more about you and your background. And I love how you're doing the Justice Project. I know that's probably not the correct title, but then also, you also do more than just your art that you have on Etsy.
Yeah, I do too many things for myself to keep track of. But yeah, I have a show related with Justice Heart Coalition, and the launch is next Friday. And so, yeah, I've worked with kind of in making art related to incarceration and the big issue that we have in this country for a while. And I'll show you some pictures.
Is it by people who are incarcerated or about
that group, they work to do programming for artists that are incarcerated. Yeah.
And graphic nonviolence.
To give them a voice. And graphic nonviolence is a thing I'm doing with my friend Rufo, who's on with me. And it started with making T-shirts for groups that are doing cool stuff. And the first T-shirt was for Jail Guitar Doors, who does music workshops with inmates. And I was volunteering with them for a little while, and leading songwriting groups. And yeah, I just really fell in love with the program. And then me and Rufo started doing printmaking workshops. And I was like, why don't I, as an example, I can, heal two birds with one Band-Aid, more positive spin. But as an example, rather than just make some kind of typical, we were doing a political art class, but rather than just making something that might be redundant, I'll make it so that I can use it for a benefit for some other organization, like for Jail Guitar Doors. So I made my example a design for them, and then I showed it to Jail Guitar Doors, and they said, oh, we should make T-shirts of that. And then that started this whole thing off, and now we're working on T-shirts for a group in New Orleans that exchanges musical instruments for weapons with kids on the streets of New Orleans. Yeah. So
that's a brilliant exchange.
It's great. Yeah, it makes me feel, like it makes me feel connected, in the world. Sometimes we can feel kind of isolated in our ivory towers and not knowing what kind of effect we have. So if I can feel like I can do something with my art, something little small little thing, then it makes me feel a little bit better. Yeah.
Makes me feel grateful.
Okay. Good.
You.
Thanks. Well, should I show my slides?
Oh, please, we'd love
Okay.
to see it.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I realized that 15 minutes, there's a lot because I'm going back 20 years, but trying to give a broad picture. So I'm going to share the screen and then start this off. Here we go. I start with this photo because I think of this as the beginning of my career as an artist. And this was 25 years ago. I was touring with a couple national tours with a circus show, and we really had to just live off of what we made by being on stage. And that was that kind of commitment. I was like, wow, I'm doing this because we were hungry. And we were doing the starving artist thing, and it wears on you after a while, of course. So after like I'm moving really fast. After like 10 years of living
Take your time, by the way. Don't
Okay,
feel
all right.
rushed.
Thank you, Boris. As a hand-to-mouth lifestyle, I decided to go back to school for graphic design. I thought that I could use my visual perception skills to make some money, but then that didn't last because I ended up taking a second major in fine art. And these are examples of what I was making. So I was a little bit older than the other kids there. I was like 27 when I started. So I had a little bit more under my belt as far as experience. I was kind of analyzing a band that I was in or creating. I was trying to connect visual art and my past as playing music in bands by using concepts. And I was trying to create a concept, almost like a concept album, but visual concepts for a band called the Boy Scouts of Annihilation. And I was looking at a Boy Scouts manual from the 60s and really intrigued by the pictures. I was intrigued by kind of the mysterious training that they do. And this was around the Bush time and the Iraq War. And I was kind of equating that with, the kids being trained a certain way and people being sent off to do these deeds for the government. I was in there. This was the first time that I had critique for artwork. And I realized that there was a lot of ambiguity and that I was probably pretty comfortable with that. Like some of these images, I started being interested, I guess, in dichotomies. So some of these images, I might have fire, but I also thought of it as a type of energy. So it's doing two things at the same time. And I'm going to go back. I would have images of healing, but they might be perceived in a way that might seem like they're not sure of the intent of the people involved. And I was okay with that because I felt like the lines are not always so clear sometimes. I wanted to really get into thinking about things. And to me, art is a way of processing and of thinking about what we go through in our lives. And then these things, images of someone being rescued from the Boy Scout manual. Some people thought maybe the person was getting not rescued, but they were having something detrimental happening. And I was learning to be okay with some ambiguity in my paintings. That was all right for me, and woodcuts and drawings. Same thing goes for the knot tying. To me, I was thinking of it as a metaphor for like tying things down, trying to figure things out. And I was also seeing that as a kind of a limitation, like putting a category, putting a kind of saying, this is what this is. You kind of lose something when you do that a little bit. And I was starting to think in terms of structures of thought and how they frame the way that we operate in the world, the way that we think about things, similar to the way like linguistics, if you've ever taken a linguistics class, they talk about how that really affects the way that we think and the way that we operate within the world. So these structures became very important to me and the way that we see things. And I was thinking about the creation myth. I have the serpent and the apple from the Garden of Eden. I was thinking about knowledge and how there's two sides to that too. And they say that ignorance is bliss, and that knowledge is quite a burden, and it can have some drawbacks sometime. I was becoming more self-aware than ever in my 20s than I had been as a teenager. I was kind of a daydreamer, and becoming more aware of myself and how what I did affected other people, and being more sensitive to other people. And it became kind of overwhelming sometimes. And I became very interested in the ideas of perception, and how the way we see things affects the way we work with each other, and the way we take everything in. This is so now these are all labeled phantom limbs. We had a on the Ignorance is Bliss theme, we had an album called Applied Ignorance, and which was sarcastic. But I was in my lyrics and in the visuals that I used, this was on the album cover. I was speaking to that theme about the kind of these. It's the same as the story of Faust or the Garden of Eden, how knowledge is a burden, and it comes with a price to sometimes.
Are you going to play any of the music that goes with these?
Oh, that I think that would take a little bit of time because it's a lot faster just to look at a picture. But you can look up the phantomlimbs.com or the Boy Scouts of Annihilation on Google and find our Bandcamp is what you'll find, I think.
Great.
And yeah. And so the Phantom Limbs, I had a sketchbook that I took with us on tour. And so this is one of the images. And here's some more from that sketchbook. So a few hours, getting from place to place on the road provided ample time to immerse myself in my sketchbook. And I didn't have to carry too much, just like some red watercolor and a couple pens. And I had a very kind of direct, like, let's just throw it up there and see what happens approach with drawing. I wouldn't like do any guiding, sketching or anything before I add it. I would just go for it with a pen and just see what happened. And some things I had to cross out, especially the writing. I didn't want people to read some of the stuff, personal thoughts. But then, other things I would leave in and kind of emphasize with the colors around them. And some things are covered up with patterns. So that I liked that kind of patchwork that happened in the sketchbook of just letting it happen. I became really comfortable with that approach of drawing. And this, I wrote ending period of sketches on here because I realized I wanted to change course with that very kind of expressive kind of way. I wanted to change course a little bit at least for a while. And I wanted to be more deliberate. This one was one of my best pieces from my first solo show, 2011. And I spent a few months preparing, but I only got a few good things because of that approach. I was working at a studio. I was actually working, I had a big studio because I was working at an art center for people with disabilities in Chicago. And I had the keys and I could go there on the weekends and make art. And I would have canvases all over on everybody's desk and everything all over the place. And I had like 20 things going at once. And then, when I had the solo show, I had like 4 good things come out of the 30 things that I made. So I decided to change approach. And we just saw a little glimpse because the slides are moving on their own. We saw a little glimpse of performance. I'm putting this as a break in between, I guess you could say, periods in the visual work. The one on the right was a performance I was doing when I was working at that art center in Chicago. And these are called the Lotto Ball Stupid Dances. So it was I've always loved absurdist theater, and I've had some pretty wild organ music that I had as the background. And these are purely physical. Here's another performance. The one on the left was and the one that I did in grad school. So I went to grad school in 2015, moved back to Los Angeles from Chicago. And for this period when I was studying performance art, because I had the opportunity in grad school, I was using found audio or audio that I had created in the past. For this one on the left, I had found audio from other students when I borrowed the camera, and I used their film footage, including the director saying cut and action and all that stuff. And I made a piece that was about observation and being observed and the effect that that has on our behavior.
Are there more than one image on here?
Yes, there's only one image on there.
Oh, let me
Didn't change. So we didn't see the
let me
performance
fold it.
piece, and then you're transitioned into something else.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. It might take a second for it to show up. Where did it stop? At the did you see all the paintings up to the performance?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, here's some performances, and you heard me talk about them, and this is what they look like. All right, I guess the screen sharing went out for a second. All right. This is a character named Lotto Ball that was doing these performances. So I ended up having an alter ego. I felt like in order to be a visual artist and someone involved in performance and music, that it was easier to split myself and have one part of me do one thing and another part do the other thing, so that I could have different social media profiles and different way, because there's different language to talk about these things. So I ended up creating an alter ego in order to do that. So I've always had kind of a tension around that, like trying to bridge the two things, trying to bring things together within, whether it, performance was a way to do that, or sometimes I've done animation, or right now I'm working on a video. So this is the next period that I wanted to explore, thinking in terms of structures, as I was talking about linguistics and things like that, structures of thought. And also it relates to observation too. I started becoming interested in the cause related to incarceration, as we talked about earlier. But I also wanted to get into the psychology involved. Just like with that image of the biblical scene, I'm like thinking in terms of a cosmic or macro level and the micro kind of internal level, and trying to understand things from way out there to way inside. And so I was studying the architecture of the panopticon, which was designed so that people would feel, people that are in prison would feel like they were being watched at all times, even if they weren't. That was really interesting to me. As someone who, I guess you could say, I'm a little bit sensitive and was thinking about, just aware of others. I just kind of touched on that a little bit, but it was very interesting to me, this very kind of sinister design to control people just based on architecture. And so then on the cosmic level with this, sorry to be flipping back and forth, I used the guard tower. I named them after elements. This one is Earth, and the guard tower, I'm using a cosmic phenomenon called the Eye of God, which is, I saw on the cover of National Geographic, but it is a phenomenon in space that they call the Eye of God. So I put this guard tower as at a theological level. And here's one. This one's called Air. And it becomes a light tower. So the prison is sort of expanding, I would say. And these are 6-foot ink drawings, by the way. So this is when I started becoming a little bit more deliberate. I wasn't so concerned about the drawing. I would let once I had a sketch on, I would let the ink kind of do what it was going to do, but I would do a lot of planning for these. This one is called...
These are 6 foot tall?
6 foot tall, yeah, ink drawings.
And how wide? How wide is that?
4.
Wow.
4 foot wide. This one's called Fire. And so the guard tower in the center of the panopticon becomes a pillar of fire. I guess that's also touching on the biblical. I went to Christian school, private school when I was a kid. So you can't help but have some of that stuff filter in. This one is called Water. And so and this is actually on Dockweiler Beach here in LA. So my wife and I went out there and saw this, and we took pictures, and I sketched this. And I made the guard tower this kind of pillar of earth with a cage on top. And then, yeah, then it's very expansive. This is all water around the central tower, which is a prison itself. So this one, it changed form. I might have to. I timed these slides so that I wouldn't take too long on one thing. So sorry that I flip back and forth sometimes, but there's a lot to show. And so this one started flat. It started with the panels on the right. I made 50 of them for a show that where everybody was doing 50 panels, and this was related to the theme of incarceration. After the show, I decided to put them on cubes to literalize sort of the boxes that, you know, everybody is in if they are in jail. And so I had 48 of these panels on 8 cubes. Yeah. So there's 6 sides. So I put them on cubes. What I found when I was putting them on cubes is that people wanted to rearrange them. And that was really exciting to me, because if I'm someone who's interested in structures, if to have someone come in and want to change it, that's exciting. And that impulse really fed me to want to do more. Even the pedestal, it's interchangeable parts, and it would change on different showings. I didn't show this one too much, a couple times, but I started getting excited about interaction with people and how the body can relate to structures, and also how that can relate to time, because the time and the body are related through the act of movement. This is grad school happening to me as I'm doing all this stuff. We get into all this theoretical stuff, but I put stuff that could be on the body. I did images of prisoners that had been neglected by the system, or neglected, and they were put in there by the system and neglected by the system. So on the bottom right, I have an image of an attempted suicide at LA County Jail. And on the top right is an image of someone who died in Adams County in Colorado. This is right at the time when I was making these. These were in the news. And he had a heroin overdose, and they didn't give him any water. And then on the one on the left is another person who passed away. I'm putting them on punk rock jackets because I was thinking about my upbringing and people that I had grown up with, people like Angela, people who we didn't quite, we're kind of a little bit, I guess, on a different place than mainstream. And maybe we had to find ways to find community. And this was our community these jackets were symbolic of ways to meet people. And a lot of our friends that we would meet and become very close with, they might have had trauma in their lives. They might have had things that they had to deal with growing up, and they might have turned to drugs or other things. And they could have been me, that was neglected, or any of my friends. And Angela and I have had friends that have passed. And so this was a way of me of identifying, of thinking about who I am and what's happening around me, like in LA County Jail, which is only 10 minutes away from me, and where I was going and doing music workshops around that time too. Here's another kind of theological macro micro kind of exploration. This was a performance where I'm playing Saturn, and I have little paper dolls that I bite the heads off, kind of like the Goya painting. And then it was only fitting that it all ends in an explosion. This was around Trump time, coming into office. And I was just thinking of violence and destruction related to what was happening. And so this was my a very visceral exploration. I don't have much more to say. I have a couple guards. I had a couple guards at the performance with me with toy guns, and I did a self-immolation at the end of it, and then the fire came up on the screen. There was a little bit more involved, but okay. More in relation to the body. As far as connection goes, I was this is another absurd kind of tongue-in-cheek look at the phenomenon of the glory hole. I had made I had an opportunity to do a mural that was on wood, and I thought I wanted to do the figure and have holes to kind of imply connection, kind of like the way the cubes that could be stacked made people want to think about moving them. I was thinking, well, if there's these holes there, I mean, whatever's going to come to mind, of course, the glory hole will come to mind. I didn't have any signs saying that this is about this or that. It was just this phenomenological thing that was there in the middle of Cerritos College. And people could make of it what they want. But I knew that the fact that there's women with holes and men with holes, and there's holes in eyes and breasts and crotches, I'm seeing that as a way of connecting, but it's having a contradiction of a wall at the same time. And it's about a mediated way of connecting with other people. And yeah, it's just kind of, I was also, yeah, just fascinated by the weirdness related to the glory hole too, I would say. And so naturally, I did, for my thesis in grad school, I did an installation, which took up a 14-foot high gallery with a big gallery. And so the box's idea, those stacked cubes expanded. And I ended up stacking a lot of things and making a backdrop that kind of reflected the patterning of the objects that were stacked. We have on top the lighting that it's supposed to be, where it's very dark. There was also a smoke machine embedded into one of the stacks of boxes that went off at one point during the opening. And then at the bottom, it was lit a little bit better for the photographer, also to give an idea to people like you about what was in the installation. There's some black goo on the bottom on the ground, which was just like a mysterious energetic form. I was getting into thoughts of intelligent matter through the animation of these boxes and the idea of them moving. That became very exciting to me about the unfixedness of it, the fact that the object would be changing, that people would want to move it. It led to me kind of fantasizing about the objects continuing to move on their own. That's a good lead in for this one. So this is a piece that came out of that thesis show, that installation, and it still has a life of its own. It's continually evolving. I call it Die Kunstkammer, which is German for art chamber, which is basically a cabinet of curiosities. And I'm relating it to the European collection, where they would have little places in their house where they would show objects, many of them taken from other cultures, and a lot of them brought up, shown out of context. And I was making a connection between a thought structure about looking at things as events rather than dead matter. As I said, I was very excited about the idea of things, kind of the artwork kind of living on its own, that I became very interested in a process-oriented ontology, a process philosophy. So this one is very much exemplifying a way of looking at the structure of matter itself as alive versus dead, and thinking that if we think that way, maybe we wouldn't be treating other cultures the way we have in the past, in the colonization times, and maybe we wouldn't be treating the planet in that way. This is just, these are the thoughts going through my head. So yeah, as we mentioned, the jail guitar doors design that started Graphic Nonviolence, the project that I do with Rufo Noriega, who's on this call too. This is our way of connecting with people and being able to do something with our artwork. We're making shirts for organizations that do cool stuff in the world, and also doing workshops that kind of explore the activist history of printmaking, and other projects. And then I do have a show with Justice Arts Coalition next Friday. and the launch is 7 p.m. Eastern time, which is 4 in California. So thanks a lot for having me too. And I'll stop sharing.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for letting us know where we can see your next show. That was incredible. So definitely opening it up for questions.
All right.
I just had a question about, I noticed that in the Panopticon series, you're dealing with the series of the elements, because of fire, water, earth, and air.
Yeah.
Is that any connection to any particular, well, I associate it sometimes it's strong with hermetic alchemy sort of stuff. Does that come from any particular tradition, or is that just, a general way of interpreting that you felt was resonated in this project?
Yeah, more of on the latter, more of a resonation. I hadn't really studied the alchemical use of elements or anything like that, but I mean, I definitely have interest in that, and that as an idea is fascinating to me, and that ties in with the later work related to matter and change, and looking at objects as events rather than just fixed, inert, dead matter. Yeah.
I like seeing your multimedia, and that's very. It's just great to see someone working with multimedia, performing and visual
All right,
together.
cool.
And also, will you make sure to share with us so we can send it out, the links to the various bands, so we can look at those at our leisure.
Okay, yeah. I'll send it to you guys, and I'll send it in the chat too.
Great.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for you also. How much did the music scene influence the art? Or was it more of like the travel while doing the music?
It influenced it, like everything. Yeah, it definitely influenced it. The interest in activist printmaking and the style of drawing. Like I would look at the record covers, which would reference. As far as the printmaking goes, the record covers that I would look at when I was 16 or whatever, they would reference printmaking from the 40s. They were using that style because it became synonymous with activism, and that was a huge part of punk rock. And so it was getting it filtered through, people that were a few years older than me in the 80s, and looking at it from their perspective, and then it became part of the way that I visualize things. And it's all part of it. It's all very much related to this aesthetic, whether it's a more on the activist side or more even on a dystopian kind of sci-fi kind of thing that some of those groups get into as well. But yeah, definitely the all the bands are kind of in the punk world, but that means a lot of different things to different people. But some of it, like it could be more on a synthesizer kind of experimental side, and other of it could be more of a guitar-y kind of thing. And there's different aesthetics visually that go along with those two things. But yeah, all of that filtered in into the visual work for sure. Yeah.
And so my follow-up question is, are you still involved with those bands or in the scene and making music?
Yeah. The Boy Scouts of Annihilation, we had a few reunion shows and like a couple of years ago, and we want to get in the studio and record. We were about to, like I guess it was a couple of years ago, at the end of that period of doing like benefit shows for friends and stuff. We were about to record, but then we lost our bass player. He quit, and then we were. It's so hard to get things rolling again when something happens. When you lose a key member, it's really hard. So, but we're hoping that we can we're talking about getting started again as soon as people can get together in the same room. That's the Boy Scouts. So the Phantom Limbs also had a few reunion shows a few years ago, but I don't think we're doing anymore. And then I have Lotto Ball, which is a solo thing. I have a drummer, and that's the character that I was talking about with the blackened eyes. And so that's more of a synthy kind of project. And I haven't done a lot in the last year, of course, but even before that, it was kind of slow. But right now I am working on a animation for a music video, and that's going under my own name. So I'm putting together a demo tape and I'm working on the videos first, and I'm working with some animation that's very, very collagey.
I have a question about your education. You mentioned going to a Christian school. I was watching a program the other day that talked about how the word Christian in our culture now means Trumpism virtually. It's become synonymous with republicanism. Were you in a more conservative side of Christianity, or was your work is your work in rebellion to that education, or is it influenced positively by that education?
It's both. It's both. Yeah. Like my grandfather was a minister, and he was the most gentle, kind, generous person I could think of. He was amazing. And so he was a great example for me growing up. And so I see sides of it that are really wonderful and sides that are not so wonderful. but I, especially related to colonization, and wanting to imprint your own ideas on other people. But yeah, it's very much it very much became synonymous with Trumpism lately. It is unfortunate, yeah, because there is a lot of good sides to it, and a lot of good people too. Yeah,
I agree, because I grew up in a very liberal denomination of Christianity, the United Church of Christ. That was the church that Obama attended, that was universally condemned by Fox News and everyone before they said he was a Muslim. But it was it's such a strange thing to see politics, and I mean, to see amalgamation of politics and religion in the U.S. It's a very recent thing in my experience. But yeah,
the private school I went to was more on the conservative side. I didn't quite answer your question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks to everyone, and thank you for that. Looking out. It's always my secret hope that the artists kind of link up and find out how to do a mashup together, and then come up with this really cool artistic baby. And then also, I just think it's awesome to just see that everybody is still creating. Nobody is feeling stagnant. So see, we can't let the pandemic get us down. Yeah, and so I think that we are actually not going to have David with us tonight because he is having some technical issues. So we might have to work that out for a different time. So David, I'm glad you can hear us, but yeah, he can't hear anything actually. So never mind. Unforeseen, but yeah, luckily we got through this whole call. But there's Richard. Richard Bell was one of our presenters before, so glad to see that you're here. Well, I see David, okay, and there's the artwork. That would be hilarious if Richard actually spoke for David, but that's a lot to ask. Yeah, so I guess we'll save that for our next salon. I will definitely leave it open for any more questions. And if not, we will send the follow-up email for everyone to have the artist's information. I know that a lot of you have work for sale, and you're also looking for collaborations, and so we'll put up those websites. And yeah, it's just a real privilege to be able to represent this extension of the San Francisco Monthly Salon. I know that your salon, Boris, has also been doing well in Berlin. So I would urge everyone to go on to themonthlysalon.com and register to be a part of San Francisco and attend Berlin, because you can go anywhere during the pandemic on Zoom. And also consider if you're interested in subscribing, or because a portion of the proceeds actually goes back to the Eyes and Ears Foundation in San Francisco. And of course, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit about that. What made you choose that particular charity to be involved with?
Well, actually, I came to San Francisco. I'm a harpist. And when I first came to San Francisco in 1979, it was to assist in the production of a show here called From Silver to Gold, which was the first musical in the US which integrated deaf and hearing actors in the same stage. And it wasn't like somebody, a signing person standing off to the side translating for a deaf audience. The music was written so that you felt it in your body, so if you were deaf, you would be impacted by bass notes in your physically, and it was done in a wooden room that was very resonant, the Little Theater at the Legion of Honor here in San Francisco. And the company I was a principal in New York, we gave a grant to see the production, and it was matched by the San Francisco Foundation and the Eyes and Ears Foundation. So that's how I became familiar with the Eyes and Ears Foundation back in 1979. And I've observed their good work. And a few years back, they approached me and said, if we ever wish to, because I'd always funded the monthly salon myself. It was my personal philanthropic gesture until it started getting really big, and there started to be expenses associated with it. So that were beyond my ability at the time. So that's when I started asking if people wanted to contribute, they could. And the Eyes and Ears Foundation seems a really good organization, since what I do fits in their residential as well. And they're a longstanding, wonderful organization in San Francisco.
Thank you. So signing up at themonthlysalon.com, and yes, we will have David Washington next month. That's what we decided. I'm so happy you all could be here. It's always such a pleasure, and it's a place where I hope it fosters further collaboration and ideas and understanding. So if you have any artists to recommend in the LA area, I would love to speak with them. And I hope this has been as rewarding for you as it has been for all of us. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really enjoyed.
Thank you. Thanks, Akira. Thanks.